What's up, everybody? Welcome to Artcast. Easy
No,
XP
it's
podcast.
just Easy XP podcast, I
This
guess.
is the podcast. We talk about everything. We'll talk about media. We'll talk about artistic integrity and the mindset and motivation behind making art. We'll talk about our daily lives. We'll talk about things going on. I don't know, like
Games.
Yeah, sometimes we'll talk about media.
We try to split those up into
We
separate
do.
podcasts, but
We probably should come up with other names for all
But
of these, but
it's because
you know,
we this is all we have right now. Is just this podcast.
this is all we have. in our
This
lives.
is all we have.
We literally have nothing.
And we don't do it like super frequently. I feel
We're
like.
trying to get there. gotta get
so
there.
we might as well just start with this is just a podcast.
Welcome.
Welcome
to
to
a podcast.
Welcome to a podcast.
All right, now Kurt, talk for an hour. We were joking before the podcast that Kurt doesn't even listen to what I say, and he just was waiting for when he could talk.
Well, Zach's like,
Just
I
kidding.
wish I talked more on these things, and I'm like, it's not your fault that you don't talk enough. It's my fault that I just want to talk all the time. If you guys have watched these before,
And he just showed me that he makes notes throughout the week about ideas and stuff, and I'm like, I need to make notes. So
I have.
can,
If you see
talk
my
about these
like,
concepts.
if you see like my notepad in my phone, I have so
It's
many
the
notes.
ramblings of a serial killer.
Yeah,
No,
it's like when people have too many tabs. I'm also that guy. I have too many tabs on my
your
my
brain
browser.
has too many tabs, dude.
Yeah, my brain has too many tabs, and so does my browser, and
Yeah.
so my notes also has too many.
The end of
notes.
every week, I just like close all those tabs, and they're gone.
And you know what's funny is when they're gone, they're actually you don't miss them.
No, you don't.
Yeah, but I always
But
think I will. Like if my computer crashes and I lose the tabs, I'm like, no, my tabs, and I'm like, I don't actually remember what I had. There,
Yeah.
but
exactly.
yeah.
Anyways, is there a topic for today?
I mean, like one thing we were thinking about is like, like since I've been making content, and I'm sure you've been making content too, but I feel like I'm sure you've experienced this too. But when people have opinions on your content, and this also stretches to when I suggest and like push people to make content. So for example, like there's my buddy at the gym, Vinny, like he's starting to do personals as well. And I always, this is the Kurt talk that I always like. It's the Gary talk through Kurt, sort of, but like I've adopted it. But it makes sense. It's the like, if you want to start doing this stuff, like, and I think everybody should. It's like you should start putting out content because
You should
that's,
just do,
yes.
just start making anything.
And the barriers to that are just they're universal that everybody has to get over. So he was like saying, and you and I both obviously worked through this, is like, you think about posting something, but then you're like, it's kind of cringy. It's like, I don't know about that. Or, like you're second guessing yourself. And that's why I always think about like that exercise. I always go back to the same. I just talk about the same shit.
I actually posted a meme the other day. It was like, Link getting kicked out of the house, and then the grandma's like, "I'm sorry to kick you out of the house, but you posted cringe today." And I'm like, "This is me every day." Like,
Is that
Yeah.
what that meant?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see. Yeah. And so like weirdly, like I think back to when I was posting super frequently. I was trying to post at least once a day, which it's weird that that's kind of ended up happening now anyway. But we'll get to that.
yeah.
But a lot of those posts, I was like, this is kind of cringy. Like, why am I posting this or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then you realize like that's not the point. Like, what is the point of your posting, right? Like with that exercise before, the point was like just get comfortable posting.
Yeah.
It wasn't I
Whether
want to
or
get
not
like I
someone
don't
might think it's cringy or whatever.
yeah like for whatever happens, I just want to get comfortable posting.
And that external judgment doesn't even matter. But that's a whole different topic. But
especially when like if this guy's goal is to start getting more privates, like personal whatever, like clients, then like you don't even need like you don't even need 1,000 followers or like clients.
Oh yeah.
You only need like 6 clients, 10 clients maybe.
Yeah.
And then you're good to go. So I mean like whatever you put out, the more you put out, the more like chances there are for people to latch on to something. Is what I was saying to a lot of people, right? And that's why, like for example, there's lots of accounts that focus on, they think they have the niche, right? Like I'm the boxing guy, right? I do boxing content, which might be better in the you might get more followers because people follow you because you're the boxing guy. They know what they're gonna get. They're gonna get boxing content.
Exactly.
So you'll get more people because they know what they're getting, right? Whereas if I put random stuff out like boxing, anime, art stuff, life talks, they're not really sure what's happening. So like, I might not like all his stuff, so I might not subscribe or whatever.
Yeah.
But when I put more stuff out, there's more chances for people to latch on to different things, which I think is also more beneficial for both parties, because one is they get to latch onto you, they get to understand you more as a person. Like a lot of the boxing guys that I follow, I'm actually very curious about who they are as people. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to know. It's like the same thing about like celebrities, or that's why there's tabloids and stuff, like or actors and stuff. It's like I actually really like to listen or find like interviews and like all the stuff about who they actually are. Like, are they actually as cool? That's why everybody's like, oh, did you hear that like whatever is actually really a dick? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's
I
like,
heard that
ooh.
yesterday about something. Oh, we were talking about Mythbusters. You ever watch that show?
Yeah, sometimes.
And then there's Cary Grant and Tori, and then someone said the other night, they're like, I heard Tori's a dick through the rumor mill. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like,
And so that's what I
cares?
mean, is like the more content you put out, the more
Yeah.
chances you have to just be like, this is who I am.
Exactly.
And then
yeah.
for you, it's good because now you're basing your potential following or your brand or whatever it is won't be based on this one thing that's like that could potentially leave you vulnerable, in my opinion, because I don't like just one thing. Like,
no, exactly.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm more
kinda
than
one note.
yeah, I'm more than just boxing guy, right? Like,
You're
I
also
like all
stuck
these things.
when you're starting to get kind of burnt out on that one thing. Like, you don't have anywhere else to kind of fall back on, you know, or just show like for instance, like you're sharing, like you share your boxing stuff and whatnot, but you also share your Gundams and stuff. So like when you don't feel like putting out content, maybe that's like boxing or MMA related, then you can always just show, like, you know, that nerdier side of you, the like Gundams and memes and, you know, comics and things like that. Like,
I mean, that's something that I always think about too, and this is the talk that I try to have with everybody, kind of. But it's the, like, you know, like the expectations of who you think you are and who you think people think you are, and who you thought you were growing up versus how you know
how you turned out, like,
or how you think you're supposed to turn out. Like, I always think about like
that preconceived ideal of what,
because it's
thought
really
you would be,
because it really is like people are in high school, right? Like, I think
yeah,
like,
dude, we're both 28, and I can tell you there's still so many high school related scenarios dealing with people.
because
Sometimes,
even I still have some things where if I put it out, I'm curious what, like, fucking, I don't know, some guy from grade 10 is gonna think if he sees it, because I don't know why, but I like, it's not a conscious thing, but I feel it. I'm like, what are people, and like, who are you really talking about? Is it, you know, it's like usually people from high school, like something like that. Like, what is, I don't know.
It's funny that you say that, because I was watching a live stream of Nathan Barnett, like I showed you.
Yeah,
He's an actor on YouTube.
Keith Apicary.
Dad
Feels.
But he was doing a live stream, and then at one point people in the comments were talking to him, and they're like, oh, it's you from high school, or this person from high school. And I'm like, that must be such a weird feeling at like 39. Like, these people are like watching your content live. Like,
Yeah.
and they have families now and stuff like that. It was like blowing his mind. He's like, wow, you have 2 kids now? Like, holy crap. Like, that, like, what he must be thinking, you know, like, that with that many years apart, like, of these people watching his content, you know, and he does a lot of absurd things. So
Because it's really like high school, you're all like in one, you're in high school going together. But like once you get out of high school or whatever, you're just all into like, so it's weird to like see like, oh, he's totally
he's
this
in
guy.
jail.
yeah. And like something that I think like, because, you know, I'll say it again, and I don't know how many times I've said this, but like, you know, for example, for me, my idea like of what I thought I was before, like in high school, was like, you know, cool, stoic, athletic, kind of cool kid, kind of, you know what I mean? And then like when I think about what that's supposed to turn out, like, what does that mean for me in the future? That's what I used to think, right? It's like, well, what would that guy look like now after he graduated high school? Like, I was trying to figure out who I was. And, you know, I actually have seen a lot of guys, like, now that, like, how I thought I was and how I would have turned out if I believed that so much, of, like, athletic, cool, like, whatever guy. And I've seen them, I'm like, yeah, that's probably what I thought I would have turned out like. Like, when I see people, I'm like, yeah, like, that's what I thought I would have been. But I'm not that. And, like, also that idea of who I thought I was is not really, like, realistic. Like,
It's
for
not
some reason,
true to who you actually are.
that too, especially. But also, I was thinking, like, I don't know why this was the example that came to mind, but do you ever watch the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling?
Yes.
I always thought of myself as, like, not that far, but some version of that, like, kind of stoic-y, cool guy. Like, if you knew me in high school, like, I thought of myself kind of like that, because I also know that, for example, when I'm at the club and I hate it and I'm just standing there, there's an air of like, oh, he's cool, he's like mysterious and whatever. So I like that.
A Night Rider all night.
Yeah, like
I forget.
I don't know. But I liked that idea of a person, and so like I was like, well, what would that person kind of be like? But you realize like that's not even realistic. Like, first of all, that's not even a real person. That's a movie.
Yeah.
And that's not really who I am. Like I wasn't
I
actually
know if that's someone you should
aspire to be. Yeah, like even in real life, even if he was a real person, that probably wouldn't react. Like I was thinking about that. Like if he was a real person in real life, he'd probably just be very lonely, and like he would just go to the bar and do his thing and then go home, and he probably wouldn't. All those things wouldn't have happened to him in real life normally. Like, not that matters, but the point is I wasn't really looking at who I was and trying to find that. I was at first trying to like figure out who I thought I was and trying to mold myself to whatever I thought that was, or whatever, you know what I mean? And so like I think going back to, putting out content, which I think is an expression of yourself and all that stuff, is you can't be like held by that, obviously, which is obvious. Like we've been saying this all day, like forever, right? Yeah. But for example, for me, one thing that I feel like I could work on in that respect, like I feel like everybody needs to work on this. Like this is like the problem that everybody has, is not knowing who they are really and trying to live up to certain expectations that don't necessarily apply to who they actually are.
No, for sure.
So like one thing that like my small thing that I noticed that I'm conscious of is like I'm not as comfortable putting out like content about me like liking anime or something, because it's not like cool or whatever. Like boxing is cool, you know what I mean? Like boxing's more universally like cool, but like anime's a little bit sometimes kind of like, oh, you kind of weirdo dork weeb guy, you know what I mean? But the answer should be I should be just as comfortable putting out the anime content as I should be putting out the boxing content.
No, definitely. I mean, I was hanging out with friends and helping them move yesterday, and they jokingly called me a weeb or something, and I just laugh it off because it's like I know who I am. I don't care, but like that stuff is all it's definitely not as cool as like posting you working out or boxing.
But that's
going on a trip somewhere, traveling.
Cool based on like what though, right? It's cool
based off of exactly, like other people's societal expectations that even that you might not even be receiving from them, that you preconceive. Like thinking
that's been planted
like you're thinking that's what they're thinking.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think like this is where I was going from at the beginning, is that you and I have both had experience, I think, with people like feedback and comments,
totally, and
whatever. Like like that. There's one guy specifically that would like message me about my content. Like he's like I appreciate the content and but also, and he's trying to like argue with me a little bit. Yeah. And I think you're always gonna get that, especially like I don't know. The other day, something like that happened, and in my head, I'm like, I was okay. Like usually, and I think you see a lot of content creators dealing with this. This is what I was gonna talk about before. Is that they want to be like I was watching this. There's a cook guy on TikTok that's this Asian guy, and then I guess someone was like they left what did they say? They're like, oh, like go eat avocado toast, you millennial, or something kind of like, it was more mean than that, but it was like, something like, because he's a cook, he does cooking videos, but then he was like, go eat avocado toast, you millennial. Like it was meaner than what I just said. I don't remember what he said. And then the guy made a specific, TikTok, you can reply to people, so he made a video specifically for that guy, kind of like petty and solid. He knew he was being petty, and it wasn't too bad. It was just him making avocado toast, but making it really deliciously.
Oh yeah.
Which is good. It was really good, but also like there is something about like, and this is just my personal feeling. It's like when like it's like if like a high level celebrity like replied or like responded to like a so-called like plebeian like fan that's not at their level or something, like it would just kind of seem like petty. Like you needed to take your time out of the day to like deal with this, I guess. It's like it got to you.
The fact that you're feeding the fire
a little bit
poison or whatever,
you know what I mean, which isn't to say that I don't think you should reply or like talk to these people or whatever, but obviously there's a line of which
sometimes it's entertaining, but
like that comment
at the same time, like you're taking time out of like what you could be working on to like
it's just
add poison to the
it's just like
concoction.
You have to just you have to just be comfortable with like that happening all times, because like I said, this is the life that I chose. The life that I chose, or I've chosen right now at least, is to put content out, and I'm just putting my stuff out there because I'm like building brand and I'm building whatever.
Everybody's got an opinion.
But that's inevitably gonna have people like whatever content I put out there, people are just not even consciously, they're just gonna see it and have an opinion, and they're not always, especially in that bite-sized like a minute of Instagram that I'm putting up there, like a video. It's like there's no way they're gonna know who I really am or what I really mean based off of that. And so I think like what was the other thing I was gonna say? I forgot what you were gonna say.
I was just thinking like how there's always that vocal minority in the comments, and like that usually doesn't represent everybody that usually watches your stuff or follows it. Like, but
yeah. Well, I just mean like I guess I was thinking more about like when people, they don't really like, I might say something kind of contradictory, I guess, but it depends on who I'm talking to in the context, like what I'm trying to say.
And that thing you tagged me in with Gary Vee today, he said something that I thought was contradictory to stuff he said before.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was specifically talking in that video about like, he's like, I might say the same things, but it's in different contexts, different formats, different like people, different scenarios, and that's what makes it more unique or creative, and that's why sometimes it might sound, I guess, contradictory in some ways.
Well, I think it's also
because like on the one hand, what was he saying? He was saying like I don't give a shit, or I don't give a fuck, or something like that.
But he's saying it's not like I'm so cool that I don't give a fuck. He's like, I reply and all that stuff. But I get the point with that video, which is kind of what I'm saying here too. Yeah. Is that like you can't care about like obviously the response that you're gonna get when you put something out.
No.
You and like because of that allows you to be more creative and more like free to like put whatever out, as opposed to like you have that conception of what you think your page and what you should look like. It's like, oh, people think I'm like this, and I've been putting out, like for me, if I keep putting out boxing content, people are gonna like consciously or subconsciously build that idea of like, oh, he's the boxing guy, he's putting out boxing content, and then I put another video out that's totally just like, what if I just put up an anime review? Yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, that's kind of weird, but I have to be comfortable doing that because why the fuck not? Like that's, and if they're that's not
able to handle that or willing to follow you for that, then they're not someone you need following you. You know, like
the what is that? Whoever matters don't mind, whoever minds doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I think
feel like we always, just not to tread over your point, but we always like talk about a topic for a while, and then we got like one of these like cliche quotes that we bring out, and we always say it's so like almost like monotone, like
because they're so cliche.
Mine over mine.
yeah. It's not happy to.
It is cliche, but a lot of these things can fit into these like statements that are universal or ubiquitous.
But yeah, I mean, like in those like little bits where people might not fully understand what you're saying or disagree with you in certain times, like most of the time for me, it's not. I feel like, well, I don't want to say it like this, but like usually when they reply, it's because like they just didn't understand fully what I meant. Usually, true. That or they feel like I'm like attacking them because I'll say something that's a little bit not like controversial, but it's like, hey, if you're like this, it means that you have to like work on something, or like you're insecure or something like that, which is something that I believe in, which is not a comfortable subject for people to deal with. But the point that I was making with that is that like when people misunderstand you, that's just what's gonna happen, especially because this is the life that I chose, is to put stuff out. But also like even outside of putting stuff out, in general in life, people are gonna misunderstand you anyway. Totally. Like the same thing with like, you know, when a lot of, you know, when we work at the gym and people are like, are you like in school or anything, or like what are you doing? You just work at the gym? And I'm like, well, no, I'm just like, I do whatever I'm doing. It takes too long for me to explain all the stuff I'm working on.
Because they're ready for the bullet points.
Because they want to hear,
they want to hear the small talk dinner bullet points. You know?
Yeah, like they want to hear like
school, car, job, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever.
Yeah. So like, inevitably, even if you're not putting content out, there are obviously going to be people that just misunderstand you. Totally. I'm sure, especially.
I had this the other day. Someone's like, "You should be a teacher." And I'm like, I don't want to be a teacher. I never would want to be a teacher. Like, I respect teachers. It's not something I want to do. Like, it's just based off of like the surface level of what they know about me. They're like, oh, you do this job, you should be a teacher. Like, I don't want to do that. Like,
I think that's especially the case with family, which is why
this wasn't a family member, but yeah,
but
I have had that.
That's exactly
We've all
what
had that with
most family members would. That's usually where you get it from. Actually,
yeah.
Is like that quick.
Oh, did you know Stevie B's son is going to medical school? You know, you should go to medical school.
Yeah,
shit like that.
Because I've had a lot of people, like, family and or not family, like, there's a lot of things that I know that I could be very good at, right? Like, I know I could be a great personal trainer. I know I could be a really good therapist, counselor type person, I think, because I'm very empathetic and I think I communicate well. But, like, or I could be a really good, like, video editor, you know, and all that stuff, but, or, like, freelancer or whatever, but none of those things are exciting to me. Like, none of those things are, like, would be fun. Like, or, like, someone else, like, I just got offered to be, like, a little bit higher position in, like, Checkmat to, like just help manage things, and then he would pay me based on how many members we get and all that stuff at the gym, cool. at my, like, whatever. But I was thinking about it, like, it's a great opportunity, right? Like, a lot of people would say that, especially, like, you know, my dad or something. It's a great opportunity, like, because he would give me the title, like, general manager, right? And then I could be like, I'm the general manager of Checkmat, and I could answer the phone calls, and I you know, marketing and do all the things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a really good opportunity, but I just don't, at least right now, I don't need the money, and I don't see myself getting really excited to do that every day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It will start to eat up more and more of your life.
And so I don't, and also, that's the other thing with me is I'm not very good at, like, just doing sort of it just to get the money. I'm usually, like, if I'm gonna be if my title is general manager, I'm gonna do it well. Like, I'm gonna go over there and do it. Because I'm the fucking general manager. I'm not just going to call myself the general manager and just half-ass it. So that's the kind of guy I am. But I know that isn't something that I'm, like, super excited to do. And so I passed on it because it's, like, it's not. Whereas, you know, there's a lot of people that see it the other way because they don't know who they are and they're insecure and they need to live up to certain expectations. And they also know it's a great opportunity because they can now say, I am the general manager, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. That was a lot of things I think we just went over there.
Totally.
But I think, like,
I'm not even sure what the specific topic we covered, but
well, I was just thinking about, like
other people's general
your opinion
judgment
of judgment, your opinion of yourself.
Cloud,
it's
like what you want to do or how you want to present yourself.
Because even like you have to get over your own opinion of yourself, I guess is what is part of it too.
And you have to get over what you think other people's opinions will be.
Of course, yeah. That one's obvious. Everybody agrees that. Like,
no, for sure.
Can't care what people think, man.
Easier said than done. Everyone still lets that shit get to them
for
to
sure.
a degree.
Definitely, right? And I think, like, you know, especially with people like trying to make their pages look perfect and stuff like that on Instagram and all that stuff, it's like, you know, like, for example, like sorry, I wasn't thinking about you specifically, but you know, like, for example, like, I got a post that I made that, like, got really good response.
Yeah.
But you have to be okay with, like, because you're kind of like, the next post has to be either just as good, or I won't post, or or I have to post something similar, because that's what people like and whatever. But I have to be ready to just post something totally different that, like, I just like for me, for the purpose of putting out me, and be okay with it just not getting nearly the right response that you're supposed to get. But, like, that wasn't the point. Right? Like, if you're just trying to, like, and this is so, like, I hate talking about this because it's so cliche sometimes, but it's like, if you're just trying to get the likes and the follows and whatever, it's just like, I don't know what what is your goal here? Like, what are you trying to do? You know what I mean? Like, you have to really figure out, like, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to do here? Like, a lot of people, when they are trying to just, you know, get the likes and the follows, the validation and all that stuff, it is that, like, it's because they need to feel like, you know, that validated, or like they're insecure about, you know, they just they know if they post this, people are gonna like it, and it's like it feels good, like everybody liked that. And
I've seen it in other aspects of, like, friends, and this is not to crap on anybody. Like, obviously it's good to be making more money, but right now their position at their job is making more money, and they're going, like, I really hope this sticks around for the next little while. But I'm like, is this what you want to do? Like, what do you see in the long term with this? Is this what, like, do you want to just, fingers crossed, hope this keeps going properly, like, the way it is, like, because they're excited because now, you know, having more money obviously can feel good, but it's just kind of like, are you happy with what you're doing? Because I'm like, if this is what your career is for the rest of your life, and from knowing them, I don't think that is what they wanted. But they're so blinded by that short term, like, oh, we have this contract right now, and we're making good money. I hope this lasts for a while. But it's like, okay, what happens if or when that does dry up? You know, then what? You know,
I mean, I think it's also,
what do you want to do?
It's like I think it's good to think about, like, if my life progresses in this way, kind of like, I'm hesitant to say this, but I think about this. It's like, if your life progresses this way, like, where is it going? Like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And so, like, that can be a good move, like having a contract and making X amount of money, if you have a plan that it fulfills that thing. Like,
Exactly, yeah.
assuming, well, let's just assume that you're not super hyped about doing the actual work, but the money is exciting for the contract. If you have a plan, like, yeah, I'm gonna save because then I'm gonna either go to school or I'm gonna invest in this, or like, or even if I just want to buy something, or like, there's a plan.
On a house, I guess.
Yeah, like, there's a plan to, like, get to somewhere where you're supposedly gonna be in a better position to be happy.
Yeah.
Then it makes sense. Whereas I know there's a lot of people that, you know, it's like they just believe in, like, hard work, and work is part of life, and you just have to whatever, which is good, but only if you apply it in the right, like, manner. So
agreed.
Like, there's that like, it's like a good dog but a bad master. You know what I mean? It's like, hard work is the dog, but you have to direct the hard work in the right places, as opposed to just accepting there's just hard work in general, and then you just but then you could be mindlessly hardworking to, like, nothing. You don't know what your hard work, because, you know what I mean? Like, you could just be having a job and working, and you're just like, well, that's just something in life you have to accept, is there's hard work.
Yeah.
The problem that I have with that is that you're not necessarily working towards anything. You're just accepting hard work.
You're accepting hard work for the sake of living.
Exactly. Merely just because you're like, that's just something you have to accept. Like, this is just something I have to do every day. I have to just work hard. But it should be you're working hard because you need something.
So many of us don't even question that
process.
What I mean. You know,
Yeah.
you do become a slave to the paycheck to paycheck, or
it's like, if I could take that general manager job if it worked in a greater scheme, especially, like, if I'm not hyped about the general manager job, but I can take it because it might, you know, I need the money, and it might put me in a better position in the future to, like, attack something that I like, and then I'll be, you know, more happy.
Or you can see it as, like, an opportunity to make more content for yourself.
That,
or stuff like that.
Yeah, or, like, it's just to learn and, like, whatever, do all that stuff. But obviously, like, again, like I said, I'm not super excited about that, and I think there's a lot of other things that I'm focusing on right now that, like, I just wouldn't have as much time or energy to do.
Yeah.
Like, if I took that. What was the other thing I was gonna say? I have some notes here. I was gonna transition to something else. Oh yeah, like, remember we were talking about in the other podcast about, like, not, like, judging myself too much. So, like, trying to, you know, like, I used to be, like, holding myself to the expectation of, like, trying to work hard on something, like the hustle, like, all that stuff. But like, a couple podcasts ago, I was talking about how I let off that gas pedal and let myself just do what I want now. Like, like, for example, I tried to edit some of our podcasts, like, an hour ago, and, like, I just wasn't feeling it, so I didn't, like, force myself, like, no, bro, you haven't edited these podcasts in a while, you gotta edit them and make clips. And I was just like, I don't really feel like it right now, and I just didn't do it.
It's totally fine,
Yeah, and I think part of that, like, you know, I don't have as much of an expectation on, like, this one thing, because I'm working on a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But the reason how I got to, like, working on a bunch of things and being comfortable with that, I think, was because I let myself just play. Like, whatever I want to do, I just do it. And I think I just trust myself. And now, like, you can, I don't know if you've noticed too now, it's like, now I'm working on, like, Van City Fight Tech, which is the boxing channel that I have on Instagram, and we have our thing, Easy XP, my own stuff with the Gundam stuff, and I'm even, now it's funny because now this is where we're going to talk about it. I'm thinking about maybe we should even do Seeing Double again,
which is our old gaming show where we would drink and make jokes, and we come up with the rules during the game.
Basically, we play games and drink.
Essentially,
we make
and usually
jokes.
It's funny.
We try to make it funny.
Sometimes we don't have the energy levels, but
yeah,
you know,
it's hard. It's actually harder than you think.
I always bring it.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, we're gonna dabble in that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that's also healthy because like our expectations are just they're not what they were, because when we were working on that before,
It was like under
was
this
like
blanketed macro project.
dream. It was like our
Yeah.
thing, our passion, or whatever. Like that's how I thought of it.
And then that's where it started to get to like we're getting at each other's throats a little bit.
Because like there's
And
too much like pressure.
we felt like no
and,
one.
like,
Some of us weren't doing enough. Some of us were doing more. Like
yeah.
it wasn't becoming as fun for some people. It's becoming.
But now at this point, I think it's okay. Like I feel more comfortable, just
Yeah.
like we're doing it just for the fun of it, which I
Agreed,
think is where the most like successful projects of a lot of people like come from. Not necessarily like just fun, but like just doing it because you want to. Which
Yeah.
want to, like as a side note, isn't always the fun thing. I think about like when Tim Ferriss was talking about someone's like, should I write this book? He's like, well, if you're asking the question, the answer is no. If you need to write the book, if you feel like this burning need to write the book,
Exactly.
then you should write the book.
This what's his name? This artist named Scott Kurtz. He made a comic. He went up to the guy who made Bone. That's a famous comic series. You might have heard of Bone. Do you know Bone? Anyways,
Bones.
he went up to this guy and he's like, this guy was like one of the first to do independent comics, and he's like, dude, how do I do this? He met him at a convention. He's like, how do I do this? How do I get into independent comics? And the guy's like, if you're asking me that question, you're not ready, because it's tons of research, it's a lot of work. You gotta talk to publishers, and you gotta talk to comic shops. You gotta make the work good enough. You have to do all this stuff. And he's like, if you have to ask me that question, then you're not ready. And the Scott Kurtz, the guy, he left being pretty upset. He remembered, but he's like, that was probably the best thing he could have done, which is he made me realize, like, if I'm having to ask these questions and not putting in my own research and time into something I really am passionate about, then I'm not ready. So
I can see that, because there's a very like, it's a very common thing, especially with the people that have done it. So that thing I sent you with Game Grumps. So Game Grumps is a channel of same thing. They play games and they make jokes. They have this thing they posted that was really cool to be, where they're just talking. It's literally like this. They're just talking. And then
this is a more recent thing too, right?
Yeah, I've never seen them post anything like this. And he's talking about like the analogy for when people ask them how to get to where they got to is like, it's like fog. Kind of. It's like you found your way through the fog, like Game Grumps did. They found their way through the fog, right? But as you go forward, the fog like closes up again, and so like your path won't look like mine.
I got the perfect blanket statement.
Okay.
The monotone. There's many paths to the same mountain.
Yeah.
Which is a very true statement. I do really believe in that.
But it's also like what we're getting at again.
It works for other people.
To bring it, won't necessarily work for you, but also getting back to like what you said about, you're not ready
if you're
or whatever,
asking,
is there are, and I see this, and there's a switch that I think I like looking back now, I definitely think there was a change there, like, and you met me at the time where I was in that stage of like, how do I do it? I'm gonna look at all the successful people and ask them how, and look at their paths. Like I looked at Monty Ohm, you look at Funhouse and like their history and all that stuff, super interesting, and how did they do it? And so that would hopefully inform me on how to do it or something like that. I don't know. But there was a switch at some point where it's like that stuff doesn't matter at all. Like you have to like do. But there's so many people that are so caught up in, like, I get them sometimes too, where they're like asking the how. They're always asking how. Like, how did they do that? What app did you use for that? How did you edit that? How did you get that? How did they do that? How do you think they do that? What do you think they did to get there?
Asking specific questions isn't bad. Like,
it's not
like,
bad.
Hey, how did you make the quotes on your video or something? Like the bars or whatever.
Yeah. It's like in like sparring or boxing and stuff like that. It's kind of like, I can sit here all day and we can be like, okay, well, what if he throws his cross?
Yeah.
And then I have to slip. Like, if I slip on the right time, and then if I throw my hook, like, do you think that would work if he threw his and I slipped his cross? And it's like, dude, like, when you're sparring, you can't
even think.
I'm not gonna be like, well, I said that I threw my cross and he whatever. Like, that's obviously not how it works.
It's less thinking. It's more like
you just have to like
practice and do, like,
and then whatever happens will happen.
Agreed.
And then like a lot of successful people, that's why they say, like, you can't, like, I think Steve Jobs said that, like, you can't connect the dots going forward.
No.
You can only see them, like the dots connecting when you look back of like, oh, that's
so that's how I got
like,
to this point.
it's like when you climb, you know, like
so
a kind of
this worked.
I don't know. It's, when I think about you ever do the Chief,
Yep.
like that. It's like a
it's like a famous hike in BC, Vancouver.
Kinda, yeah. It's like it's more. It's not as like, you know, what's it called? Grouse grind is like just stairs.
It's just
So
yeah.
it's
So
pretty
that's
much
another hike, and it's just straight.
It's just like
incline the entire
one
time.
path.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Chief has like 3 paths, but also like
Somewhere.
they're very open and there's different ways to go
Yeah.
there. So like you don't necessarily know how you're gonna get up there. You just kind of put the steps and you're like, okay, well I went up that log and then there was some dirt there, so I kind of didn't want to slide on the dirt, so I took this rock and then I went, and you kind of just go,
exactly.
right? Whereas like I feel like it's a little harder to like stand at the bottom of the mountain and be like, okay, I see there's a rock there. I'm gonna use that rock, and then I'm gonna try that log. It's like, well, you don't know until you get there. You're gonna, you know, you test that rock. Maybe that rock's just fucking loose as fuck.
Yeah, you fall
and
in
then
the
you're
river.
like, well, maybe that was. Then you gotta adapt on the fly, and figure it out, right? And that, you know, that's why everybody's like, you know, life's not a straight path, and all that stuff,
it's
right?
not.
It's
and
like,
I don't think, because people ask like, what is the proper path and stuff, and I oftentimes it's like I don't even think those are like things you can mimic, you know, like it's so tough to mimic something like that. It's like capturing lightning in a bottle. Like, you know, you can get to that same goal, that same mountain, but that path cannot be the same. I don't know many people that have ever really been able to mimic the same path, you know.
exactly. And
Look
I think
at actors and how many of them get in like some people,
how they get in,
like
yeah.
Ricky Gervais didn't get famous till he was like 40 something,
Yeah.
and then you have people who are like
15,
Tom Holland or like
yeah.
19 and they're Spider-Man, you know, like
yeah.
it's so hard to like pinpoint, especially with creative projects, like where or what will reach that mountain, that pinnacle success.
Of course, yeah.
And then it also is differing for everybody. What is success, you know? And going back to them asking like, how do I do that, or like, should I write this book? Like, there are so many people with these insecurities, like, and they want that blessing to be creative, and it's just like all what you have to do is just do an experiment and do what you want. You know, you have to try. You have to fail a bunch, and then some point maybe you'll reach something that, hey, this works actually, this makes sense, and even that might fail, and then you just got to keep going.
That's why I think there is like a lack of. I don't know if there's a lack of it, but I don't hear it as much as I think we should. Of the like, people always say that it's like there's no straight path, every path is different.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hear that
For
a lot.
And
But-
it's contrived and cliche, of course.
But I think people know it's people need to hear that. But I think people don't hear enough of the like, just like move, like just do, like just
try.
move, like just anything. Like,
there's nothing wrong with just experimenting. Like, not everything has to be what it'll look like in 10 years.
which is also why it goes back to that first thing we were talking
Yeah.
about. Is like not judging yourself.
Exactly.
Right. It's like the drawing is like just
Everybody-
draw stuff.
I
like,
want to be
draw
as good
anything.
as Junji Ito
Yeah.
by tomorrow. You know, it's not going to happen. You're imagining, and people are, and I always like thought this in my own head. It's like you're always picturing what everything will look like in 10 years of hard work. And you're stuck in that macro, and what's in your head for 10 years worth of work might not even be what you end up wanting to do at some point, you know. But everybody's so stuck on the macro, like they're looking at people on, like, that's why they want the likes and shit, because they want to be that pinnacle of success. So it's like you're looking at what everything could be in 10 years, or whatever projects in your head, like what will happen after hard work and failing a shit ton. You're gonna fail more than you succeed. Like,
I think that's like going on the drawing analogy, because I was listening to people talk about this, and I was in that. There was a period where I really was, and you know this, where I really wanted to like draw and be like an illustrator.
Totally.
And that's where I was. That's where you met me in that time of like, how do I do that? And I was looking at like, I had like 50 gigs of downloaded content of like tutorials and like classes and stuff that I pirated and all this stuff. And then I'm looking at like,
you mean downloaded legally?
Just kidding. Whatever.
No, I'm joking. Yeah.
And then there's, you know, like how people got to like, how did you start? Like, when did you start? How long did it take? What kind of stuff did you draw at first? What school did you go to? What did they teach you at school? like all these resources and stuff, and I was like, I hoarded them because I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
But there was actually very little like doing. There was just a lot of like hoarding that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, it's interesting because when you look at a lot of the artists, they give you that answer when you it's almost like a misdirection, because it's like when you ask them that question, they're nice enough to give you the answer of like, how did you get that? What did you do? And they give you the answer. They're like, I went to school. This is what I started drawing when I was like 7, and I love drawing. And they give you that answer, and that usually like may or may not encourage you or not, doesn't really matter. But there was one artist. There's only been a few artists that have just said. They're like, or they'll tell you, a lot of them tell you the fundamentals, right? You have to do construction,
Yeah, you gotta
perspective,
practice gestures, you gotta practice
proportion,
body proportions,
like
and
all the stuff.
anatomy,
They're like, these are the fundamental, most important things. But there's a few artists, like one guy I used to follow a lot too, Saikra Yasin or whatever on YouTube. So he does tutorials and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And there was another artist that I heard say this when they were at Comic-Con and they were just interviewing artists.
Yeah.
Like how to start and stuff. And these are the only few people, and I'm sure lots of people would say this, but they're like, draw what you like. Draw what you like first. Like just draw what you, because they were like, because that guy specifically was like, I know you know the answers, construction, proportion, perspective, all that stuff is like really important, and you need to know those things. You need to practice those things. But if you're not having fun, like this isn't the thing for you. Like you're not gonna do it, and you're not gonna get there. And so like practicing what's fun is gonna make you actually do it.
I can tell you, before I was able to get to a point where I have my own style and understand like body anatomy and stuff, and I still have ways to go. Like I used to just copy like Full Metal Alchemist and stuff like that. I would practice and just copy because I wanted to learn how they did it, and it was something that I found fun and exciting, and it helped me foster my positive relationship with drawing to the point where now I can do more stuff my own way, like.
You know what's weird? It's like I'm coming up with this other quote that could be totally misunderstood, but it's like I want to say, at least when it comes to this stuff, which makes it more true potentially, is like doing what you want to is always the right path.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think sometimes that's difficult.
You should always be excited.
Well, it's difficult to decipher what that is, because what you want to, for a lot of people, is I want to have, like, they don't know this. But the truth of why they're doing a lot of what they're doing is because they want to have the likes and the follows and the validation.
And they want to have the nice car.
So
and
it feels like,
whatever,
it feels like, if I'm like, are you doing what you want to? They're like, yeah. And they don't know, but they don't realize that what they're really doing is what they want to, because they're insecure and they want the validation. So in that sense,
they've probably seen somebody else that they're like, oh, they got a cool life. I want that. Like,
But what I mean,
not things to mimic.
Yeah, and but when I say do what you want to, that takes a lot of like self-awareness and like really know who you are and what you're feeling like in that moment. The other thing that like potentially like contradicts that, where you wouldn't do that, and this is a good segue now.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was feeling kind of like, I just get in mood sometimes. I was kind of down. I wasn't like super depressed or like sad really, but I was just in kind of like a
funk.
Yeah, just like a low mood. Yeah, like a funk. That's a good way to explain it. And it was like, I think it was like 8:30 or something, and then I was like, should I go do something active? Like I didn't really move today. And sometimes I get that. And usually I don't care, but for some reason that day I just felt like kind of lazy. I'm gonna sneeze.
Sneeze portion of the podcast. Sorry, go on.
I might have another one.
Oh,
no.
Oh.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry about that.
So yeah, I was just sitting there, and then I was in that kind of funk, and that I'm waiting for it.
I know, I'm waiting for it too.
I feel like that's one of the only times when you have to kind of force yourself, even if you don't want to. Because I was listening to, so here's another, I always have these references because I like, watch a lot of stuff and listen to a lot of things, but so I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast, the most recent one with Andrew Huberman, I think, or one of the most recent ones, where he's a neurologist or whatever, and then he's saying when you which this just makes sense, like when you're stressed and anxious or whatever, biologically that's kind of like it's trying to make you move, like that's what stress is meant for.
Yeah.
Stress and like depression and sadness and all that stuff, to a certain extent, I think what he was saying, because I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing because I don't know, I only listened to the podcast once, I need to listen to it again.
Yeah.
But that type of feeling is meant to make you move, like physically almost exclusively. Like you're supposed to like move and do something.
It's interesting.
You know what I mean? Like fix this, do something, right? You're not supposed to just be like, I'm stressed. Okay, I'll just sit here and be stressed. You know, like
and sometimes you end up doing that because you're so overwhelmed. But,
and that's what I mean. Is like when I'm in that funk, like
yeah.
I wasn't really sure if I felt like it. I knew I should, but like my emotions were kind of like, nah, I don't really. Nah, I could totally just play games or whatever. But what I ended up doing was like I called my buddy Roger and I was like, hey, do you want to go like do like hill sprints and like pads or whatever? And that's why I posted that video recently.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I made it almost like contingent. It was almost like flipping a coin. I'm like, if he says yes, then I'm gonna go, obviously. And I just needed him to say yes for that 1 second, because he was even like, I don't know. And I'm like, come on, man. He's like, all right, I'll meet you there.
Nice.
And then after that, I'm like, okay, I'm going. Like even if he doesn't show up, I should still go. And like just because now that's what happened is, you know, like, and that obviously ended up turning out really well, right? And I think a lot of people say that, like I saw that on TikTok too, is like when you have anxiety or that type of stress or whatever, a good way to deal with that is by moving. Like, so another example is like Faraz Zahabi is the head coach at TriStar Montreal in MMA, and he's like, one way that he deals with fighter anxiety before a fight is he gets them to like move and hit pads. Like he's almost like, some of them he's like, I almost need to give them like a full workout, almost like get them like working like really hard before the fight, because there's just, the way he thinks about it is like there's too much energy, like they have too much like,
so built up,
the stress is giving them more energy because they're like, I need to do something, like if that neurologist is right the stress is like, you need to do something, like you're stressed, like do something. So he needs to help them by like, okay, let's go like real hard pad session. That way they're giving that energy that stress is asking for. Yeah. Right. And then so when they do go to the fight, not only are they warmed up, but they've exerted that energy that might, because you know when you're too stressed in the fight, you have too much. It just, you freeze and there's too much. It's too much all at once. Yeah. So and I felt that too. Like, you know, it was, you know, it's kind of funny, but before I went on the Gary Vee show, obviously the first day I was kind of nervous. And then I just started kind of like shadow boxing and whatever, and like just really like not even just chill shadow boxing. Like I was actually like throwing pretty fast because I'm like, I'm like nervous enough to like, that was actually pretty nervous. That was actually pretty nervous for like, I haven't felt that nervous in a while.
Yeah. You're meeting your hero.
Yeah, and then I started shadowboxing pretty intensely, and then I actually felt like a lot better. I was like, it was good. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna kill it
too. Where it's like, I'm so like overwhelmed. I'm gonna go do a bunch of push-ups, like, or whenever I've gone through like a breakup or something. That's when I go through the hardest at the gym, because I'm like, I just need to like work out so hard that I'm not even thinking anymore.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like you're so exhausted that all you could think about is just, I need to like rest now because I'm so dead.
But yeah, and I think that's like a good example of like when you are I mean, that's something that I found that like I'm kind of new to it, but what I've so far found is like, like when I'm feeling anxious or whenever stressed or whatever, is like moving, like just move, like just moving. But again, that's where it sounds contradictory to doing what you feel like, because when you're feeling down, you don't feel like moving. Yeah, you're just like, I'm down, I kind of want to just go to sleep and die.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Me.
Just fuck it.
Drown me now.
But that's the point of where that's when you do have to force yourself to like, you gotta move.
And there's gonna be points in when you're doing things you like or you're passionate about, there's gonna be aspects of it that you don't like doing.
See, that's the part where like, it's maybe they're two different things, right? Whereas disagree. Like, we'll see. It's not that we disagree, it's that when you have this North Star, this accomplishment, this thing that you want to achieve, then you do have to like, if that is a fact, if that is like unchangeable, unwavering, just a fact that like, I want to accomplish this thing, I don't care, like people have that, right? Like totally, like, you know, especially like the best athletes, like, I'm gonna be champion, no matter, I don't care, like I can say all the things, I'm like, oh, it's because you're insecure or because you like, I don't want care. The validation or whatever, like no, I'm gonna be the champion, I don't give a fuck. Then you have to accept all the necessary things that you have to do, whether you want to or not. You have to do the things totally, and that's where you're saying is there's gonna be things if you have that ambition that's so set in stone.
Yeah.
Then you have to accept that like even if you don't want to do it, you gotta fucking do it because that's set in stone now.
The thing is, like, the things you like also come with like practical things you have to do that you might not be that passionate about. So like, for instance, like I want to make comics and stuff, but I know that there's going to be aspects of like building websites or marketing or things that I don't always find as interesting, but I know that if I do want this out in the world, I should put the effort into those aspects. And I know there's going to be parts where I'm going to have to figure out, like, you know, how taxes work for that, or, you know, like copyright and stuff like that. You know, that at those points, I know that those are the disinteresting things that help me do the thing I like. And unfortunately, there's always going to be some of those small hurdles that you have to do within that thing that you're passionate about. And it depends. Like, maybe that's not for you and you just only want to do the one thing you like, and somehow it all works out. That's great. But I just, like, I wholeheartedly think that if you do, like I said, have that North Star, or sorry, like you said, then definitely there's going to be, you're not even going to wake up every day and always be passionate about doing that thing you are passionate about. Like, there are going to be days, like you said, you were like having a funk the other day and you're like, I don't even know if I should go do anything, or should I just play games and do dick all, or should I get up? And luckily you had the motivation to push yourself to go and do like the hill
pads
runs
or whatever,
and
like something
stuff.
physical. But again, those I was saying are like a little different because that's like getting yourself out of a funk versus striving to achieve something that's like worth something to you. But I think, you know, the goal ideally, again, which isn't necessarily for everyone, but like I think the goal ideally for when you're trying to strive for a certain accomplishment is that whatever the part within that, at least, okay, first of all, hopefully there's something in the work to get to that accomplishment that you actually enjoy.
Yes, yeah.
And second, hopefully that takes up most of the time.
Agreed.
Which is why even like Gary will suggest like you need to like link up with people that can do the other things that you don't like doing.
For sure.
So that you can maximize the one thing that you actually do like doing. Because that's what he's saying, like a lot of people when they start businesses, that's part of what the problem is. They started with like, let's say they enjoyed making their product. Yeah. Like, it was super fun to make the product, but now they have a business which requires marketing and website and all that stuff.
And
which is not what they started out doing for fun. Yeah. But now they have to do it because they have a business around their thing that they originally were doing just for fun. Yeah. And then he's like, now you have to like start partnering with people that can run the other stuff. Because now you're too much time is now not the thing
that's
you like.
That's a difficult point to get to, but definitely if you can link up with people and do that, for sure. Like
something like that, right?
No,
or the other one he says too, just like downscale, because everybody's like, they do the thing they like just as an example, they do the thing they like, they make a product, they make a business, and then they're like, now we have to scale. But then it's like potentially, like, do you like? That's why he's always like, why do you want to scale? Like, do you even like? What if you just kept it as like a one man business and you just that way you get to 100% of the time do the thing you like doing? Like, you don't have to scale, you don't have to grow if you're gonna turn into like this guy that does this shit that he doesn't want to do and only get to do the thing you want to do 2% of the time. And like, or like, you know, they think they have to move up and be like the CEO when really they liked the grunt work stuff. That was what they started with. They liked the grunt work. And then they're like, okay, well, now I have a business, so it doesn't make sense for me to do the grunt work, so I should be the CEO, I should be the manager. But then now you're managing, which wasn't necessarily the thing you wanted to do. Maybe you liked doing just the artwork. Maybe you liked being the guy that drew the characters and not the supervisor, for example, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like, you know, that, I don't know, that goes back to that, like, progression of, like, people, what they think they should be doing and the expectation of, like, well, you know, if I'm here, I want to go. It's like the cultural thing of like societal thing of you trying to move up always.
Yeah.
Right. But
where
anyway,
you could just find the thought on that hierarchy that you like.
Yeah, like you just you. What if you like that stuff? Like try to like that's what I was saying. Is like ideally you're maximizing the stuff that you like doing.
Yeah. Like Elon Musk might not be the best example, but like I know he spends a lot of time on the floor, like trying to do mechanical engineering
in the dirt.
Yeah. But he still has to do all that other shit. Let's face it. But so that's why he's not the best example. But anyways, those of you at home, let us know what you think. Thanks for following. Hopefully you can follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Sorry to cut this like all suddenly. But
it's Zach's dad's birthday.
Yes, my dad's birthday. I gotta go.
Zach's dad.
But thank you for watching, and I think this is one of our best talks, actually. Like
I did enjoy.
I talked.
This is a good one.
I talked today.
I try to let you talk.
Oh, right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sick. He allowed me to talk. Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.